fiduciary responsibility that supersedes any allegiances or anything. So while I would be a strong advocate for and support for helping the administration of the university accomplish what they want to, the role of the board, honestly, is fundamentally about fiduciary responsibility. So I don't even see that as a conflict. I think the president would expect us to play that role and to provide that fiduciary responsibility. So I don't really see that as an issue. I deal with that now. So he mentioned when he share with you my title, I'm a co-leader. In our retail businesses, we have a co-leadership model. And what that means is I have an equal president who's in charge of all of our creative functions. I have all of the left brain non-creative functions. There's dynamic tension all the time. Dynamic productive tension, not negative, but just dynamic tension, and there are things that they want to do, resources they may want to deploy because they're inspired creatively to do things, but they are outside the budget. So we just say no, and we have a very, very, very good working relationship that's non-antagonistic. So I don't view that as an issue. Anyway, I understand and appreciate the question, but that's not an issue for me. As a CFO, fiduciary responsibility is something that is at the core of everything that I do, and I think a position on the board versus the administration or somewhere else uniquely positions you to exercise that fiduciary responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dent, for all the trouble that you went through to get here. Certainly, I appreciate your interest in serving on the Board of Trustees. My name is Ava Parker, and I'm a member of the Board of Governors, and also on the Nominating Committee. And I want to talk to you about what you see as your role as a trustee and your relationship with the president. And I'm interested in, and I guess the Board of Trustees and its relationship with the president, in this case with Dr. Ammons. What is your responsibility? How do you see that relationship working? Tell me about how you envision that developing if you're actually selected to be on the board.
All the research and reading that I have done about how the boards are set up by the Board of Governors and how, what the Board of Governors and formerly the Board of Regents expectations would be of board members, I would say that the primary responsibility is an accountability to the Board of Regents, again, because I believe that if FAMU is to return to its glory and to rise from where it currently is, that this body has to become comfortable with giving resources. So I appreciate that in an environment of finite, constrained resources, where a dollar here versus dollar there, where you have all presidents vying passionately for dollars, that our responsibility, first and foremost, especially at this juncture and where FAMU is to make this body very comfortable with the Board of Trustees. So I say that to answer your question and say that I would say the primary focus would be to be accountable to the Board of Trustees. And I think some of the earlier comments that I had, that we would be a strong advocate and have the appropriate dynamic tension with the president and with the university in helping the president not only say yes or no, but to help him develop his point of view and develop his strategic agenda. One of the things about corporate America, and this is an analogy I use about CFO, so there's a stereotype of a CFO where all you do is after the battle's over, you walk up to the general and say, here, this is how many people that died. That's helpful, but the general really needs help strategizing for the war on the front side. So I believe that part of the role's dual responsibility is not only to wait till the administration comes and says, this is what we want to do, can you help us do that, yes or no? And if you say no, then you're not working against them and you force the president to try to go around you. I think the role of a good board and a good board member is to partner with the administration and the president early in the process. So what I've liked and what I've read about Dr. Ammons so far is that he has extended into the university. He has extended and putting together a coalition and a task force to gather input. So I have every expectation, I've never talked to him, but I have every expectation that he would assume that same type of thought process with the board as well. So I hope that's a long answer to a specific question.
Oh, no, thank you very much. I don't know, and pardon me if you've been asked this question, but I guess what we envision is that this is, I guess, a huge time commitment based upon where we think that the university is right now, at least in my limited view. Tell me about the kind of time you have for this. I know that you live in another state. What is your commitment to, if you're selected to serve on the board?
I think that I'm aware of the time commitment. Again, I've been very committed to the university. I live by a code of my life. I'd rather be significant versus successful. So when I die and go to heaven, I don't think God is going to care about how many panties and bras that I was responsible for helping sell. I think and body lotion. I think the opportunity to help a university, which I've been an advocate for, and I think is largely responsible for where I've been able to achieve, is first and foremost. And I've told you I've dedicated a lot of what I do outside of work to helping young people get to historically black colleges. And I believe in the viability of historically black colleges. I just joined an organization called the Executive Leadership Council, and that organization is a group of all African American CEOs. And one of their missions is, and it's all about giving back. One of their missions is helping historically black colleges out. So what a better way to be an adjunct and to do something that means something to me. So the time commitment is not an issue to me. Obviously with my schedule, something I have to deal with, but once I make a commitment to something, it's something that I do. And I've purposely not accepted things in the last 6 months that could have taken in anticipation of hopefully receiving this role. So I'm very committed and appreciative of that, and would be there and do what I need to do.
Thank you.
Any other, Carol?
I'd like to, and please excuse me for stepping out a moment on the telephone, and I'm sympathetic to you trying to get here today and appreciate your effort. I know there was a little stress involved in that, but thank you very much. And as with all our applicants, we're very impressed with your application and your resume, and I loved what you said about being significant. And excuse me if anybody asked this. Did anyone ask specifically about audit committee experience? That, I mean, you have experience in all of it. Are you comfortable in working in an environment of the sunshine? In this state, we have a public records law, as I think in many states, and sometimes we have to make difficult decisions or even ask questions that are uncomfortable, and it's in a public arena. And the press is very interested in FAMU and in our board, and we're thankful for their interest and support. But do you feel you will be comfortable, number one, in a public arena with everything you say being reported and making difficult decisions and asking difficult questions, number one? And number two, are you comfortable with in an audit environment? Do you have any experience in audit committees or in that area?
So I would go back to the fact that what I do now, my current role as a CFO, I'm responsible for certifying financial documents quarterly under Sarbanes-Oxley. So I have a level of fiduciary responsibility that if I certify something that's not true, so before I certify things, I have to ask questions if I don't know them myself, and uncomfortability just doesn't register on it's just like I just need to know, so I don't really think about it. Uncomfortable making, I think the people that I work with appreciate that's my fiduciary responsibility, so I never get to a place of uncomfortability, nor do they. However, in this context, I do appreciate the sentiment in which you're asking me the question. So to answer your question specifically, no, I'm not uncomfortable at all based on my experience. With regard to specific audit committee experience, I have not served on an audit committee, but I have gone before an audit committee and obviously have prepared documents and spoken to audit committees and spoken to our external auditors. So I'm familiar with that environment and understand the level of rigor. And Limited Brands is a very conservative, from an audit standpoint, is a very conservative corporation. We always play far to the left of where you could be. And as you all know, with a lot of these companies, it's very, very compelling to play in the gray. There are decisions I make all the time which could benefit me financially, could benefit a lot of people, could benefit our stock price. We have a quarterly earnings call coming up in 4 or 5 weeks. There are decisions I'm making today and tomorrow that could have a material impact on our stock price. And we have always been very conservative. So that's kind of the environment that I've been in for the last 7 years. And then to answer your question about in a public forum, no, I believe this job is public. I mean, with everything that's been written, everything that's been said, I mean, the whole thing is public. So that's no surprise. So very prepared for that.
I'm not surprised by your answer, but I thought it was fair to ask all the
I appreciate the
applicants
context.
the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Gus?
Sure. Do you cheer for the Buckeyes
I knew somebody was going to ask me that. That's why I couldn't get a corporate jet, because the chairman knew I was coming down here. But now he made me fly commercial.
Doesn't bother you at the University of Florida beat the Buckeyes in basketball and football for the national championships?
No, it doesn't bother me.
Sir,
And if it did, I'm not certain that I would tell you so.
I lived in Upper Arlington for a couple of years.
Okay.
And where is this New Salem Baptist Church? Is that,
It's on Cleveland and Agler, so it's kind of,
Okay.
it's south of there, but it's south of Morse Road. Yeah.
and I see that you're involved with counseling underprivileged and single-parented African-American young men.
correct.
Tell us a little bit about that, would you please?
Yeah, currently, so I did that probably for 3 years as a group called Young Davids, and was very focused on ages 12 to 18 years old. And the reason why I was so focused, have such a passion for there, because if you think about your own life, the choices that you make between the ages of, say, 15 to 23 determine the trajectory for the entire rest of your life. And I don't know that anybody's set up to really help teenagers understand that. So certain things like if you catch a felony by just riding in the car with somebody with marijuana unwittingly, we've all done lots of unwitting things, and be it not for the grace of God, anything could have happened to all of us. You can't get financial aid. Who would tell you that until after the fact? So I just have a lot of passion for doing that. I've invested a lot of time in working with teenagers because of that. And then part of that mission really is to help them. Again, I'm an advocate for college educations, and I'm an advocate for, where appropriate, for historically black colleges too, for viable, healthy, strong, academically strong, historically black colleges, and helping kids go to that. So that's kind of the passion there. I think the passion is helping them, but then getting them up and out. And a lot of it is working with parents too, because a lot of why kids don't go to where they go is about the parents. So I have a relationship with the parents, and in this particular environment, almost 85 to 86% of the kids are single parents, single mothers, or grandparents, and don't have fathers. So that's another reason where we've really deployed this kind of group mentoring and try to establish other credible reference points in men. So it's something I've been very passionate about.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Dent? Well, thank you very much for being with us today. I know it was an effort, as has already been pronounced. I've also, in addition to Gus down there, had to suffer with the fact that my father-in-law and brother-in-law are former chairman of the Board of Trustees at Ohio State. So, it was very enjoyable over the past 2 years.
I'm sure
I might add.
you won some good bets, I'm sure.
If there are no further questions, well, thank you again for being here. As we've said before, which you were not here to hear this, I don't know if you know the other 4 people we've interviewed today, but I don't think it's possible for any board to have 5 better people appear before them seeking 3 jobs. And our problem is going to be how to make 5 go into 3. There's some outstanding candidates, and thank you very much for your time and your
Thank you very much.
Okay, at this point, I understand that Governor Dasberg is on the phone, or will be on the phone again. He's been with us part of the morning. Procedurally, there are a number of members of the board who have participated with the committee today. We appreciate that. We welcome you to stay with us and to participate in the discussion. My understanding historically is that non-members of a committee have not normally voted with the committee, and that's what we will do unless there are some objections. As I look at this, and again, the procedure, what we will follow is each committee member will have 3 votes, and we will vote on the applicants in the order in which they made their presentation. Again, and we've all said this is a very, very difficult decision for this committee to make. I have studied these applications in great detail. I've talked to some of their references, and it's not any easier. What I've reverted back to is the criteria which we established in selecting trustees. As you will recall, these criteria were given to us by the university presidents, by the Board of Trustee chairman, and I think the wisdom in that criteria is very clear here. If you look at the existing makeup, of the Florida A&M Board of Trustees, you will find that there are 6 people on that board who I relate to government service jobs. There are 2 lawyers, there's 1 preacher, and there is 1 more who temporarily, it's embarrassing, I forgot the other occupation. The point is that there are no people with business backgrounds on the Florida A&M board. And I think that might have something to do with the concerns that they have today.
One-com reservation list conferencing. Enter your conference code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Now, with that said, and again, government in the sunshine is what it is, I would make my comments and then let everybody else. Belinda Shannon, extremely impressive young lady. Well, what can you say? She's got it all. But her one weakness is in the area of audit and finance. And she is an attorney, and there are already 2 attorneys on the board. I'm an attorney. I'm not prejudiced against them. But that's my concern there. Tom Jones is a great guy. Look at his background, phenomenal. He's already involved with that university through the foundation, and hopefully we could keep him involved. What I'm trying to do is figure a way to keep as many of these people in the loop as possible. With that said, Bob Brown is internationally known. Under different circumstances, he might not be one that I would vote for. But under the current circumstances at A&M, he brings almost instant credibility back to that university just because of who he is. I know that other members know him well. I know that Governor Doshberg does. Richard Dent, a young guy, outstanding. His primary background, again, is CFO. Carl White, the same way, a younger gentleman who's strong background in finance. With that said, my 3 votes would be for Mr. Brown, Mr. Dent, and Mr. White. Now, everybody else is welcome to their opinion. Carolyn?
I'm ready. And first of all, I've asked the chairman this before in the public, and I'll ask him again. And I know that the process doesn't allow it, but the ones we don't select today, I would love to keep in the pool for the future. And we need to encourage the other 2, and many of the others who did not even.
Yeah, there were 8 other applicants, by the way, who were very outstanding individuals who had applied for this board, who we elected not to interview.
Because they are outstanding, and it's a compliment to President Ammons and to FAMU University, and I really think to our system that they applied. After saying that, I think that our number 1 issue, and you can tell from me by my questions, is the financial problems at FAMU. And we just need help on our board. We need people that are prepared to work in the public arena and make difficult decisions and know that it's not personal, it's just in the best interest of the university. After saying that, and for the very similar reasons as our chairman, first of all, I would like very much to vote for a woman as competent as Mrs. Shannon. I like everything she said, but I'm concerned a bit about the background in financial areas. The same with Mr. Jones. How could you be more impressive? And I hope that we can keep them involved with the university and encourage them when we have an opportunity to vote to reapply. And I think our staff will do that. Saying that, my 3 votes will be for Mr. Brown, Mr. Dent, and Mr. White because of their financial background, because of their understanding how a business, so to speak, is large as FAMU should work in the financial area. So I'll cast my 3 votes with those individuals.
I understand that Governor Duisberg is now available to speak with us. John, I can tell you we've had a great morning knowing that you could hear us, but we couldn't hear you.
If you can't talk now, it should be.
John, are you there?
He's very frustrated, I can tell you.
It was coming through.
Apparently, we are not able to bring Mr. Duisberg back to life. Okay, we'll keep trying. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment? Frank, I know, and Alan, I know you don't vote, but would you certainly allowed to make a comment, Ava?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, Ava.
I guess I'd like to echo everyone else's sentiments in that we've been blessed to have 5 very qualified applicants. And I'd like to, and certainly if we had any 3 of them, that they would certainly be of great benefits to the university. And I guess I'd kind of like to follow the same pattern somewhat of the chairman and Chairman Roberts, as well as the chairman of the committee, in that because I've had the opportunity to work very closely with the FAMU Task Force, I have a real great concern about the lack of accounting and auditing experience that we have right now on the Board of Trustees. And I think that has been really brought to light by one of the members of the task force, as she has taken on the specific responsibility of looking at the audits and coming back to us as a member of the task force and offering her opinions. And one thing she noted was that on the actual Board of Trustees, as she looked through the minutes, she didn't see where we actually had folks with the kind of experience that we needed, that the board needed to be objective. And it's because of that, and because of where I think that we are in the life of the board and the life of the university, that I first would actually cast my support for Tom Jones. I think the fact that Mr. Jones has specific hands-on audit experience, the fact that he's a CPA, the fact that his team has actually worked and done audits at other higher education institutions, that would be of great benefit. I understand that we need people on the board who have higher level experience as it relates to different corporate opportunities, but I think that for where we are in the life of this university, and then with the boards of trustees, when we had members of the trustees who were not able to actually understand some of the, in my opinion, maybe at different times not able to understand the actual reports that they were receiving from the CFO, and to have somebody with that kind of hands-on basic experience really makes a difference. And so for that reason, I'm very supportive of Mr. Jones, and I want to just ask, as you think about who you're going to actually cast your vote for, actually think about the benefit that he can have because of that hands-on experience. I agree that everyone that is also, extremely qualified, but I guess in addition to Mr. Jones, I would say that what I like about Ms. Shannon is that, as you recall, we do have a lot of human resource issues on campus, and there are things that, and I know we've been focusing so much on the financing, but we also have human resource issues that we're going to have to address. And I think that her years of experience in that area, you messed up my argument here, I'm trying to convince my committee, but that her years of experience in that area will be very beneficial to the board as well. I think that we can't overlook the fact that it's been brought to the attention of the task force that we're going to have Department of Labor issues. The fact that she worked there previously, I think is going to be of great benefit to the Board of Trustees. And although I know that we're focusing on audit and she doesn't have that, I think that that's going to be very beneficial. And then my third vote, which is very difficult because I think that Mr. Dent is just extremely qualified, and I think that Mr. Brown has international experience that is just hard to compare. But I would fall with Mr. White. I think that Mr. White's experience at the University of Massachusetts in an audit capacity is going to be just of great benefit. I think it's just something about his whole understanding of board experience generally would be of great benefit to the board. So although I think all 5 are wonderful, and I think that we would be served well by all of them, I would just encourage you to really consider Mr. Jones, Ms. Shannon, and Mr. White for where the life of the school is right now, and for what I think they may need as a group on the Board of Trustees.
Well said. Alan?
If I can just make a comment.
Sure.
I'm not on this committee, so I'm not going to be voting.
We encourage you to comment. And
But what I would say is that if you can get two individuals that have audit background, I don't see any reason the third cannot have a different background. And I would echo Ava's support of Ms. Shannon to be on this board, because I think she brings something to that board that FAMU will need as it realigns itself with its mission.
Any other people, Frank?
This is a very
not.
difficult choice that the committee will be making, and they all are very, very highly qualified individuals to serve in this capacity. Mr. Brown has more of a global view, and I'm not really sure he came across that well in the presentation this morning, maybe because he was on the phone and he wasn't
I appreciate it.
present
Thank you
with
very
us.
much.
But if I were to look at the remaining 4 individuals, if I were to vote on the committee, it would be for Mr. White, Mr. Dent, and Ms. Shannon. I think that would be the 3 that I would be supporting if I were in a voting position on the committee.
And I would concur with Frank on those choices.
I just talked by phone with Governor Dashberg. He still can hear every word that we say, but we, for some reason, cannot hear him. I was on a separate cell phone. I don't know, Vicki, he asked that I vote for him. I don't know that we can do that, but I certainly can express his positions.
Yes, Your Edwards, you can express his position, but you can't vote.
Okay. Number 1, he strongly supports Bob Brown. He said Bob Brown is one of his heroes. He served with him on other things before, and he thinks he would make an outstanding member of the Florida A&M board. He also supports Mr. Dent and Mr. White. Now, are there any other discussion or comments? We're not voting now, we're just commenting.
We're not voting right now?
No, we're just talking. We're going to have a roll call vote when the time
last one
comes.
was Brown, Dent, and who else?
Pardon?
White?
White, that was Dashberg, but he will not be allowed to vote.
I'd just like to comment a little bit on them. I'd like to be able to vote, to cast 5 votes myself, because I was very much impressed with the lot of them. And as I went through all of the applications, these actually were the same people that I, pointed out that I thought we should interview. And I think I may have had 1 or 2 others. The thing about this group of people is that they have combinations of experience in their lives that I think will bring and add value to this Board of Trustees. Obviously we have to have financial acumen on that board. I think that has been clearly something that hasn't been there, at least in recent time. And so we have a lot of opportunity here to select. But I'm also taken with the combination that many of these people have of experience on other institutions of higher learning governance boards. And we've got 2 people in Mr. White and Mr. Brown who clearly have lots and lots of experience there, combined with other attributes. We have, as Governor Parker pointed out with Ms. Shannon, the tremendous amount of experience in the human resource area. And I will also say, having been a general counsel and an in-house lawyer in a large business, she also has a lot of financial acumen, because if she didn't, she could not do her job properly. And I know what you have to do that kind of work. And so I think that, she's a bonus. And of course, Mr. Dent and Mr. Jones also have combined kind of experience. And I really do like the idea that most of these folks have also worked in volunteer programs with younger people, preparing them for college experience. And we know, as many of us were on the Student Affairs Committee at the time that we went through the whole need-based aid exercise a year or so ago, that those programs are fundamental and key to underrepresented populations. So, you know, I'm impressed with the whole group. I don't know whether I should say who I'm going to vote for since we're not voting.
Well, we're voting in a minute.
So I think if I had to vote this
No,
instant.
if we voted, the reason that those comments aren't votes is you might change your opinion when somebody else
I
speaks.
might
So
even change my mind after that. Is there anybody else going to speak?
you were close, I'm thinking.
I may have swayed you,
Anything you want to add?
Mr. Chairman, all I want to say is that also I reiterate, I'm impressed with the entire 5. The 2 that are not selected, please stay available.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When there's a vacancy in A&M, again, we want to look at these 2 because I was impressed. I really was. They all 5 great candidates.
I would say if there's a vacancy anywhere in our system, we need to attract them.
Right.
Okay, if we don't want
Is that all
to
Gus was gonna say?
stop comment, pardon?
Is that all Gus was going to say?
Yes, you're not going to tell us? You might influence us if you tell us.
He doesn't have to give us anything.
I didn't.
I thought we cut you off. I thought you were
No.
going to give us some more opinion about what you thought about the candidates.
Yet wants to know, was that all you were going to tell us?
Yeah, because I'm a cheater. I'm going to wait.
Oh, let's see what everybody else.
I've heard some great comments about all. I think the one thing I will mention is that Mr. Jones, being on the foundation board, is still an asset to Florida A&M. So if he is not selected, and he's not one of my 3, not that he doesn't deserve it, but he's going to still be there. He's available. So my 3 will be from the remaining 4.
Okay, everybody has had an opportunity,
We're going to try to get Mr. Dasberg again.
we can't wait all morning for this now.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I noticed that.
You got him. We've got you. We've got you in the room now.
Wow, that's kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
It was quieter a second ago.
Yeah, but
ask
let's
John
let
talk.
John,
Ask
John,
him if he wants to
I
make
tried to paraphrase your comments to me, but please remake them yourself.
Mr. Dasberg?
That's addressed to me.
Yes.
Yes. I feel very strongly about Mr. Brown's candidacy, and I spoke at length to him when we were looking for possible board members. He and I are in ratio algebra together, and I can tell you he is a tremendous supporter of education, which is a principal function, among other things, of the ratio algebra. And this is a very, very strong candidate, and I support him and without any reservations. And therefore, I support the slate as I understood it, proposed by our chairman, Brown Denton, and I cast my vote for those 3 candidates.
Okay, now Governor Parker has another question.
I know that this is on our 2nd time involved in this process, and I know the first time was by phone, and at that time we did offer the president an opportunity to, voice an opinion, and I think that Dr. Ammons is president, and I'd be interested in knowing any thoughts that he might have, and I know I'm probably catching you off guard because I don't think you were on board to hear the previous conference call we had, but I would be interested in your thoughts generally, as you've had an opportunity to sit in on the interviews with the folks that we've had present today.
Really test your political acumen.
You really are. Well, first of all, as you have already said, we have had an impressive group of interested and committed people to higher education and to Florida A&M University in particular. I think all of them bring something special to the responsibilities and expectations that we have of members of a board of trustees. Now, let me ask you this question. Are you asking me to tell you who I would like for you to
I hope not.
select?
No.
I'm not, but I didn't ask the question.
I'm giving you an opportunity to say whatever you'd like, Dr. Ammons, and I trust whatever whatever information you provide would certainly provide some insight to us, I guess, as we're interested in your opinion.
Well, I mean, I guess just kind of picking up on your question, I would be interested in knowing what skills you think would be useful in helping you do your job.
That's a better way.
Yeah, I think it's in this situation, it would be extremely embarrassing to ask the president to make a choice for people he's going to work with. In other situations, that was not the case, both at Florida International and at North Florida. Their presidents made a comment, but it was a totally different set of circumstances. So with that, could you comment on the backgrounds that you would think would be helpful?
I think clearly where the university is today, persons with financial backgrounds will be important for us to have as members of the board. Secondly, I also think that individuals who can bring resources to academic programs, especially some of our signature programs, programs that we know Florida A&M University for, will also be of assistance to us. And so I think those are two areas that I think should stand out as you make this very, very tough decision.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a member of that A&M board in the legal profession?
Yes, there are two members who are lawyers.
Two or three.
Well,
Okay.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, I know that Mr. Parks is a lawyer. Who else is a lawyer on the board?
Hold on a second, I've got to find my sheet.
Let's see.
Sorry, trick question. We don't know.
I know that Mr. Parks is a lawyer. I didn't know who the other lawyer was. As I went back, I know that Mr. Holmes is a minister. Dr. Badger is a retired higher educator. I know that Ms. Duncan works with Fannie Mae.
Parks is the only attorney right now.
That's what I thought. I think that Darryl Parks is the only lawyer on the board right now.
But you also have in this pool an attorney.
I thought Al was still on the
Oh,
board.
yes, that's right.
am I missing?
Al Cardenas.
Oh, that's what I'm missing.
Cardenas.
Pardon me, I was missing. Okay,
You
I'm sorry,
doubt my ability to count to two now. If you get above two, I have a problem.
I apologize, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. You're absolutely right.
But you also have in this pool of five an attorney who is in an industry that is very important to the mission of Florida A&M University, being with the second largest pharmaceutical company in the world.
Okay, there are two lawyers. Again, there are 6 people who are in government-related jobs. There are 2 lawyers, 1 pastor, and 1 doctor currently. Okay, I think we've probably discussed this. I know we're all
Can I just make one comment,
nervous.
Mr. Chairman?
You may.
Well, we're harping on the lawyer thing a lot, and I just want to point out that she made it very clear that she was going to the business side. She had just accepted a position on the business side, so she's not going to be lawyering very much longer.
Understand.
We're not against lawyers.
Okay, at this
Sometimes
point,
I am.
at this point, I think we've talked enough. It's time to vote. Procedurally, as I said before, each member has 3 votes. I assume now, Vicki, that Governor Dossberg's vote will count?
That's correct.
Okay, he has voted for Brown, White, and Dent. The first one we're going to vote for is, in order, Robert Brown. If you're for Mr. Brown, raise your hand.
Okay, all right, Edwards, Roberts, McDevitt, Stavros. All right,
Would you give us the number, please?
Mr. Brown.
Wait a minute, had how many?
5 votes.
5 votes. The next candidate is Belinda Shannon.
Parker, Ms. McDevitt. Okay.
Next candidate is Carl White.
Okay.
What was the total there?
Let me be sure I have Carl White. Mr. Edwards, Ms. Parker, Ms. Roberts, Mr. Stavros, and Mr. Dasberg has 5 votes.
Thomas Jones.
There are no votes for Thomas Jones.
And Robert Dent.
Richard Dent. Sorry.
Richard Dent, I'm sorry.
Mr. Dent, Ms. McDevitt, Ms. Parker, Mrs. Roberts, Mr. Stavros, Mr. Dasberg, Mr. Edwards. 6 votes. You have
Okay, clearly the 3 choices of the committee are Mr. Dent, Mr. Brown, and Mr. White. What didn't happen, like I'd hoped it had happened, as it relates to the length of the term, I had mentioned before that 2 terms, I think, go to 2011, 1 to 2010. What we've got to do now is Mr. Dent obviously gets one of the longer terms. We've got to decide between Mr. Brown and Mr. White as to who gets the other longer term.
What other terms, Mr. Chairman?
Let me find my list again. I've got so many papers here that,
January 2010 and the other is January 2011.
One is 10 and one is 11.
Right.
Right.
2 are 11 and 1 is 10.
So we have
So
Ms.
Dent is one of the 11. The question is whether Brown or White. Kind of would make sense to me. Mr. White is younger. Maybe would give us, maybe he'd be the better choice to serve another year, but I don't care. Anybody else have any suggestions?
I think
also
that's
has
right.
good
We don't
experience.
discriminate.
Pardon?
He also has really
Yeah.
good experience coming out of the University of Massachusetts system.
Yeah, I think on the record, I wouldn't want to base it on one being younger or older
No,
than
I'm
the other. But I think that in this case, I would recommend that Mr. White have the longer term based upon his experience in
With me,
Massachusetts.
with no objection, we will have Mr. White serve the longer term with Mr. Dent.
And I'll remind you that this committee, or the committee sitting at that time, will have the opportunity to reappoint Mr. Brown, who is in 2010.
I would just like to number one, thank staff and all of the other individuals who have helped us attract such a tremendous pool of applicants. I think it certainly shows that the system that we are gradually putting in place works, that we can get outstanding applicants to serve on our boards, and that by doing it openly, publicly, and in the sunshine, it speaks well for everyone. It's tough decisions. The decisions have now been made. They will be recommended to the full board this afternoon for final approval. If there's no other business to come before this committee, we stand adjourned.